Hello everyone. So I was gonna make a different video today, but they caught us completely by surprise in today's update, and they added the Affinity Tower to the game on global. And they say it's high level content, they mean it. The Affinity Tower is the pinnacle of endgame content currently on the Japanese server, and it's hard. There's no other way to put it. It is very difficult. In fact, full clearing it on global right now is impossible, straight up. There is no way to full clear Affinity Tower on global right now. We do not have the gear, we do not have the characters, we do not have the levels. It is just completely impossible. You can clear some floors. It's very difficult even to clear the first floor in each one, but it's possible on some of them. But yeah, this is wild. So in Japan, this content came about 3 months into the game's lifespan after like the 11th or 12th banner or something. And then a week later came the update that increased the character level cap to 70. And those levels make a big difference in your team's power. So the entire tower is balanced around higher level characters with a much larger character pool and multiple months of getting good gear. So, you know, if you enter if you enter this tower right now and you're just like, holy crap, this seems really hard, you're not wrong. And don't feel bad if you can't clear any of these. They're really difficult. I spent a few hours earlier getting through floor 1 in the stab tower, and let me just show you what floor 2 looks like real quick, because this will be over instantly. And this was my team. Pretty standard team for Element Tower. Affinity Tower, I suppose is what it's called. You know, Stab is one of the better ones right now because we have a lot of characters that can tackle it. Some elements can't really get together the character pool so well. And you can do like off-color supporters early on. So like the only debuff we have in tower right now, oh my god, it took me all the way out. The only debuff you have for off element in tower right now is it reduces skill damage by 80%. And then characters on element also get a skill damage buff. So characters on element are doing like 9 times more damage than characters off element. So you really need to be on element for damage. But support characters are totally fine for the time being. So like Sophie, like supports and defenders like Sophie, Lightning Resna, any sort of healers like Meru or Aisha, like they're all perfectly fine for now in Affinity Tower, even off element. Once you get to like floor 7 or so, they start losing stats, and that becomes a bigger problem because they never get turns, because their speed is low, they can take much less damage, etc. But for now, for the first floors, off-element support units are viable, but you do need your attackers to be on element, and also your breakers. It helps as well because all the enemies have resistance. So let's just go into floor 2 real quick, and you'll see what I mean about this content being impossible at the moment. We will have a couple turns. So I can show you first off, oh crap, we're on auto, that's fine. We'll just let the knight get its little covering up. So yeah, I target the enemy, the knight, that has a lot of HP, 100,000, a lot of break. The resistances, it's weak to stab, 50% resistance and everything else, so you do want your breakers to be on element as well, generally. The other enemies also have 100,000 HP, and the big boss is Jellyfish, has almost 200,000. So between all these enemies, it's around 500,000 HP. That's quite a bit for the level of damage we're able to do now. And so let's just go through this real quick. And what you'll see is that after, there will be an animation bug. For some reason, some of the animations are bugged, so you're not going to see an animation. But the jellyfish is going to take its turn after this, and everyone will die. So here it goes. Fire tornado, no animation, but everyone's gone. Half my party just completely dead. And on the next turn, the other two will all, Valeria will be gone, and then we just have Sophie left, right? So that is more or less how a lot of these floors are going to go right now. You are going to get completely destroyed. I will, some of the floors are easier than others. That's one of the harder types of floors. So like I will link a video of my floor 1 clear in the description of the video if you want to see it. It's not going to be in this video, but I'll link to it. I streamed it on Twitch earlier. I will also link my Twitch so that you can maybe watch in the future, because I will be streaming more tower attempts on Global and on JP. And yeah, so obviously, you know, that's ridiculous. Everyone died. There is a way around that. It's very high investment. Also, 3 stars are a bit better at taking the damage. Like, 1 stars are pretty weak, and that's most of my Sab team right now. But there is one specific trait that you will absolutely need if you are tackling tower, and it is on... Oh, I don't actually have any smacks. Let me go to Material Quest, Dungeons, and it'll be here in Cloister. This smack comes with the trait, all target attack resistance up. And this trait is the best defensive trait in the game. So for attacks that hit all of your party members at level 5, it reduces the damage received from them by 25%. It is additive. You can have up to 3 of them across your gear. You can have 1 on each piece. If you have 3 of them if you have 1 on each piece of gear, it'll add up to 75%. So you will be taking, you know, much less damage from before from area attacks. And that area damage is going to be what's really dangerous in tower, especially because you will usually have 1 defender in the party at least to sort of like tank the single target attacks. So all of your supporters, breakers, and attackers will be dying to area damage. So this defensive trait is really important to making sure they live through those attacks. And if I got a few of these, that second floor of Stab would be a little bit more reasonable, but I think still really hard for my team right now because I don't have stars on like Marion and Cordelia and stuff. But this is by far the most important trait for tackling the tower. Right now we have this on 2 materials. It's on the Smek, this one from Cloister. It's also on Ivehibrow, which is a material from Rocky Waterfall dungeon. So very important thing to be looking out for and making gear with if you want to tackle tower in the future. However, right now tower is still like pretty bad. It's really hard. I wouldn't recommend investing too many resources into tackling tower at the moment, just because it really is like that difficult right now, right? It's definitely a very long-term goal, and even on the Japanese server, only a handful of people have full cleared it, so definitely don't feel bad if you aren't making progress in there. Other than that, I suppose I can just sort of, we'll go through like all the characters in each element right now, and I'll sort of tell you what I think about what's clearable in tower at the moment. Barrel Wisdom isn't quite updated for the recent updates yet, but it will be soon. So this page is just missing Valeria, basically. So as far as Slash Tower goes, you might be able to clear a couple floors in Slash Tower if you have literally all of the units. You know, Raze, Valeria, Logi, Linka. Maybe not Linka, maybe you use Sophie. Lightning Resna is of course also very good, like I said earlier. So something like Raze, Logi, Valeria, Lightning Resna, Sophie would be a very solid team for taking on Slash. And if you have those units, you might be able to make progress. Even Ruvi and Esta are both good attackers, so they might also help. For Strike is a bit rough right now because your only attacker is Tau. So Strike's going to be one of the harder ones. But you do have breakers and defenders, not too bad. You can actually break things, but Tau being your only damage dealer is really rough. You kind of want 2 breakers, like you can build defenders and breakers for damage and it might help. So if you do have the full Strike team, maybe, but I'm not completely sure how reasonable it is. Maybe if you had really good gear. Stab, like I showed earlier, Stab has a really balanced set of characters, especially with free Valeria in the game right now. She's a good stab attacker. Stars do help with your defenses, so a lot of these characters are 1-star that you're going to be using in the stab tower. So getting those stars up in like the peace dungeon and stuff, if you want to take on this tower, is going to be very important for your defenses. Mew is also good there. One thing I should sort of specify, I guess, like every single 3-star we have right now, every single character we have right now is usable in Affinity Tower, even the really like low tier ones for general content, because Tower is so specific and the pool of usable characters for each tower is so small, every character becomes usable, and there are even floors in Tower where Mew is required, right, in the stab tower. So even bad characters shine in Affinity Tower. So pretty cool content. Fire. Fire is definitely one of the more doable ones. If you have the characters right now, Ryze is a great attacker, Mari is a great breaker, Resna's a great AoE attacker, you have a support for healing. You would probably use Sophie for early floors over Yudi, but Yudi can be decent if you're willing to roll her dodge a lot. She's not bad. Keith is not really a fire character because his skills are ice, his break skills are ice, which means they are resisted. So you're probably better off taking a better single target breaker off element 1. So, but fire is definitely one where you can clear a few floors, especially because the first floor of fire is a single target DPS check. It's actually one of the easier tower floors. So fire is definitely one to keep your eye on. Next we have ice. Ice is really rough right now. No breakers, no defenders. You still might be able to do it with like, because Claudia is good for increasing the damage of Verona. I haven't done Ice Tower too much myself, but Ice is definitely like really rough until we get Leela, who's an icebreaker in a few months. And floor 4 Ice in particular, I know is going to be impossible without really, really crazy gear because it requires doing area damage. And the only area damage in Ice is Totori, who is a supporter with low magic attack. You need very good gear to get enough damage on her. So Ice is one I would, like if you have Claudia, maybe try it out for the first couple of floors, but you definitely won't get past floor 4 for a long time if you even make it there. And next we have Bolt. Bolt is pretty solid because the top tier like support and defender units are in Bolt. And then Vayne is a pretty bad attacker. Odelia is a pretty okay attacker. You do have to make do with them, but there are 2 attackers in Bolt. The only thing we're missing is a breaker, and once we get the Salberg banner, which is the next banner coming, there will be a lightning breaker on Salberg. So if you pick her up, then Bolt might be a very feasible one once you start getting better gear. However, Bolt gets much easier later on once we get meta lightning characters, like a meta lightning attacker like Izana, and then Liddy as well for support. Bolt ends up becoming one of the easier ones much later, but it's probably in the middle right now. And then we have Air. And Air is a bit of an interesting one because Air is by far the easiest tower with the characters we have right now. Because Air doesn't actually get any new units for a very long time. There will be one in the next banner who is completely useless, by the way. You don't want her. She's not even useful in the Air Tower. She's the only useless unit in the game. I will rant about her next week. And then you don't get another air unit for like 4 months. It's like the 13th banner or something when Roman comes. So for most of the air tower, for all of the air tower, these 5 units are your ideal party. So if you have all of them, air is pretty dang doable once you are able to make really good gear. And the good gear part is kind of where the asterisk comes in because you really need that good gear, right? For early floors and a lot of the floors, Lightning Resna might be better than Aisha, where you don't need the healing output and the damage is more preferable. But if you have Fierce, especially, Air is a fairly doable tower, so that might be one you want to try and tackle first if you're interested in tackling Affinity Tower now. It is balanced around level 70 more or less, so trying to do it at level 60, especially with bad gear, is basically only for challenge seekers and masochists, but you know, it's fun, right? It's fun, I promise. And I guess I can show off the kind of gear I had for clearing floor 1 of Stab if you're interested in the kind of gear that you might sort of need to start tackling this tower, right? First of all, we have smoked meat. This is just a physical attack battle item. You can't really use Draken on Fizz teams, especially with like Sophie, because it's just not going to hit your Fizz attackers. But smoked meat's good enough. 25% physical attack skill damage for 2 turns. It's pretty solid. Miracle Ebonile might be better, but there's trade-offs. Miracle Ebonile is an item that we got this patch, and it's 35% damage for 2 turns to all attackers, so like your breakers don't get it. But Miracle Ebonile is probably better if you make those. As far as actual gear goes, Sophie has a defensive Memoria here, and the actual gear on her is pretty bad and doesn't matter. A little bit of recovery boost, but honestly the Sophie gear is just for her defense. It's not really doing anything. Normally I would use skill power gear on Sophie for general content, but she's not doing any damage in this tower anyways, so her gear doesn't matter. She's mostly for the utility of her second skill with the resistance shred. And then we have Tess. Tess is a single target healer. I gave her the supporter Memoria that you get for a single top up. This isn't really required, but it's a nice little bonus. And then the weapons just don't really do anything. She has like 1 copy of recovery boost. This is the only trait that affects her heal. Recovery boost and single target recovery boost. So yeah, the skill power only really matters if she gets her burst. Skill power doesn't affect healing. So Tessa's gear also very bad. It's not really doing anything. And Valeria's gear. This is where most of my good gear was. I do happen to have a Memoria for 31% Fizz attack and some extra stab damage. Very lucky. You know, the new sword that with skill power up 5, and this is kind of the base level of gear you're going to want for every attacker. At the start, it's going to need to get even better later on, like skill power 5 at least on everything and probably better. So skill power 5. The armor, skill power 9. I did a huge synthesis session earlier. This was a very lucky pickup. It's 40% skill power from this one item. Skill power being the best damage trait in the game, so you might like traits like magic damage boost. This is much, much worse than skill power. You definitely want skill power on as much gear as possible. Skill power 4 is probably on average better than like magic or physical damage boost 5. So you really want to be getting skill power stuff. And then ring, skill power 5, skill power 1. So that's kind of the base level of gear you're looking for, is just heavy skill power. And for later floors that require more defense, also a mix of skill power and area defense traits as well. So that's one of the reasons why area defense is really high investment, because for your attackers, you can't just have it by itself. You need it mixed with skill power. So very hard to make that gear, very long term. On Marion, we have the Ryza 2 Memoria. This one's free. It's fully unlocked at level 5. It boosts stun damage by 29% when attacking a weakness. This will be your go-to breaker Memoria in the entire Affinity Tower. It's incredibly strong. That 29% stun damage is really good. And everything is weak to your breakers in Affinity Tower, right? They always have that minus 50% res, so very good. As far as items go, skill power is a nice extra damage. You'd really rather have physical stun damage here, but physical stun damage gear is hard to make, so I don't have much of it. So I just put one of my duds from crafting these swords on Marion. Physical stun damage here on a hard coat that also boosts physical stun damage, so we have physical stun damage 4. And physical stun damage 5 on an accessory. So you do want to be having stun damage gear to tackle tower, otherwise you're not doing enough stun damage. Cordelia, our other attacker, I gave her a speed Memoria because speed tuning is very important in tower. And the extra speed on her helped me get a good timeline to sort of take everything on. maybe in some floors you would rather have a higher physical attack memoria. On some floors you'll want a higher speed memoria. It just depends on the floor and whether or not you really need that speed. Once again, weapon, just another one of the duds from crafting earlier. This one's actually good for Val, but this is a slash damage boost, not a stab damage boost. So for this purpose, it's only a skill power 5 weapon. And then we have skill power 8 on the armor and skill power 5 on the accessory once again. And that's about it for the gear. That's the kind of, that's like the starting line for your gear, right? That's the base level you're going to want for tackling tower. And in the future, as we're able to craft more and more stuff, hope we will, you know, rack up better and better gear over time. It takes a long time. And that's one of the reasons Tower is so difficult right now, other than not being level 70, other than not having the characters, it is the gear level. But anyways, it's absolutely wild to me that they released this content. It should be really fun to see how it progresses on Global, and I'm looking forward to making content for it in the future, but it'll kind of be a slow drip because I'm not paying much money, so I don't have all the characters. My character pool is pretty small, so Power is absolutely something that requires you to have basically every character in the game to make good progress. So it is a very, very long-term goal for free-to-play, and even for whales, it's quite a long-term goal. Even on the Japanese server, when it came out and it was more progressed, like, even the players who are whaling can't clear it immediately. It can take hours to get through a single floor to figure out, like, how to do it and stuff, so very good content for the challenge seekers, people who like the combat of this game, but it's also incredibly difficult. But yeah, that's all in this video. I just sort of wanted to explain the Affinity Tower to you guys, how it works. There's going to be more tower content coming in the future, but it'll definitely be slow because we don't quite have the gear yet. And I was going to do a video on all the future banners today, but that one's being postponed till tomorrow because of this video, but look forward to that because that video should be very enlightening on the characters that you'll be looking out for in the future to help tackle normal content and also the Affinity Tower. So hope you enjoy that one, and I will see you all later. Bye.